Okay, so it is time for another reading vlog beginning, and we are so close to finishing off August. Can you believe we're nearly in September? In fact, the next time you see me, we will be in September. So, wow, this year has just flown by very quickly. Let's get into what I have been reading, starting with today. I began Terry Pratchett's The Witch's Vacuum Cleaner and Other Stories. Sorry about the glare. This is a middle grade fantasy compendium. Now, what do I mean when I say compendium? I mean that this is a book that is filled, it's a bind up of short stories. Short fantasy stories, short middle grade fantasy stories. And you know what? I've really been enjoying this read. Terry Pratchett is just absolutely hilarious, and I have to say, this is the type of book that you would want to read if you're in a bit of a rut or, things just aren't looking good for you at the moment as far as reading is concerned, or if you just need something that's going to cheer you up. It is a middle grade, so it reads as such, but it's really cute and really fun, and I've just really enjoyed my time with this book. This is the last book I'm reading for this month. I am not far away from the end at all. I am there. So that is page 173. I've got 2 mini books left to read, and I'm probably going to read them in bed a little later on tonight. And just finish this book off, and then tomorrow I'm doing my monthly wrap-up, and I want to include this book in that, so yeah, I'll kind of finish it off that way. But I've really been enjoying this book, and I'll talk to you more about it either in my next, the next time I see you guys, what I'm going to be reading for the rest of the week. I actually have 2 books to show you. I'm showing you these 2 books because I don't know which one I'm going to be reading first. These are not all the books I plan to read this week. These are the 2 books I'm choosing between that I'm going to start tomorrow. I don't know which one to start with or if I'm going to multi-read, so I'll just show both of them to you. So the first one is Brandon Sanderson's Skyward. This is a YA sci-fi. It is the first book in, I don't know what the series is called, so I'm just going to call it the Skyward series. So yeah, I planned on reading this book right now. I planned on this being the last book that I read for the month of August, but this is a long book. It's 510 pages, and I didn't want to rush through this book for the sake of being able to add it to my monthly wrap. So I made a decision yesterday to transfer this book over to my September TBR, and as you may have seen with my last reading vlog, I end up picking up Unstoppable by Maria Sharapova, read through that really quickly, and then picked up The Witch's Vacuum Cleaner and Other Stories. I'm either going to start the new month with this book, or I'm going to multi-read this book alongside this book, The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Cowell. This is another YA sci-fi. It's 421 pages long, which makes it a half tome. I really don't know a lot about either of these books, but this book is the Murphy Napier Book Club book of the month, or at least one of them. She picks 2. So, okay, very quickly I'll update you with this. Murphy, from the BookTube channel Murphy Napier, has been my all-time favourite booktuber. She is the inspiration for this channel. I found her very late in January, and she inspired me to start my own channel, so we really have her to thank for that. I've been wanting to buddy read a book for a very long time, and I haven't really found any promising prospects at this point, but over on Patreon, Murphy has her own Patreon channel, and for a very inexpensive fee, like extremely inexpensive, Murphy Napier's patrons is to start off reading this book at the beginning of the month. But for me, I pretty much fly through books. I'll read one book every 3 days, so I don't know if I want to just start with this book and get through it and get through the chat with everyone really quickly, or if I want to start with Skyward, then get onto this one and chat with everyone, or multi-read. Read a chapter or two of this one, and then whatever I can of this one each day, and then chat with everyone. I honestly don't know. I need to decide this by tomorrow, so I will decide it by then. But right now, sitting here, I could just as easily do any of those options. Just read this, or read these both together. So you'll find out more about that when I next check in with you guys. But for today, these are the books I discussed with you guys. Terry Pratchett's The Witches and the Vacuum Cleaner going extremely well, and am I going to read Skyward, The Calculating Stars, or both? We'll find out soon enough. But that's where I'm going to leave it. I'll check in with you guys again, as I always do, on Tuesday, and I'll update you on what's been going on with my reading. But till then, bye guys! Time to check in once again with another mini clip for this week's reading vlog, and I made my decision. I ended up beginning to read Skyward. And it's been an interesting journey. Now, normally I would have come to you yesterday on Tuesday, but I didn't have a really good reading day yesterday. There were a lot of things that were going on. Things just got really busy. I think I read like 30 pages and it just wasn't worth coming to you guys, but I've more than made up for that today. Today I read like 190 pages, so I can really talk to you guys about this book. So I am there, which is page 289, chapter 30 out of 510 pages, which means I'm getting there. I'm really about 220 pages away from finishing this, which won't be too long. I'll either finish this book tomorrow or I'll finish it on Friday, the absolute latest. My thoughts on this book, I'm really enjoying it. It took me a hot minute, admittedly, to get into the book because Brandon Sanderson always has slow starts to his books. It's just unavoidable, and I have just learned to deal with that, but that's because I trust Brandon Sanderson. I've read so many of his works. I know they start off slow, but I know that the payoff is worth it, and it absolutely was with this one. Even though I haven't finished it yet, it could still let me down. I'm really enjoying the process. So the basic premise that I can give you of this book is that we're following a girl whose name is Spencer. Now, very interesting point about that. I thought her name was Spencer, but it's not. It is spelled S-P-E-N-S-A, so it is Spencer in this case. So Spencer is was a daughter of a guy who flew a ship. I don't know what you call him. He was a spaceship fighter, I guess. You can kind of get a glimpse of that there. Whenever there is a Cowell threat, the fighters, that's what they're known as, will go off and battle the Cowell. So something happened the last time that Spencer's dad went up to fight the Cowell, and he's not alive anymore. Now, I won't say too much more about the circumstances regarding that because they do get into that more and more as you go along throughout the book. But because of that, he was branded as a coward. As I say, you find out why later on in the book, but he was branded as a coward. Spencer wants to follow in his footsteps and become a fighter as well. Spencer wants to become a fighter as well. And so because of this, she ends up applying to be a part of this fighting crew, to do the training and stuff. She is treated really poorly because of the reputation that her father has, but she's a very determined young lady. And if there's something that I've always loved about my MCs, my main characters, it is female empowerment representation. And this lady, this young girl, Spencer, is such a headstrong, really ambitiously driven young lady, and I really do appreciate that about this book. So, yeah, I'm loving it. So far, it's a 4-star book. All it requires is a really good ending for it to be 5 stars. Brandon Sanderson, my old friend, once again, I think you got another hit on your hands. So, as I said, I hope to finish this book off tomorrow. I might come back with another reading vlog tomorrow. We'll see how we go. If not, it will be on Friday. But once I do finish off this book, I will then move on to the Murphy Napier Patreon Book Club pick of the month, the Calculating Stars. I have not started this yet, but I'm okay with the fact that I haven't started yet because I know that I'll breeze through it. So, yeah. But anyway, these are the books that I spoke about in this reading vlog. Going really well with this. Looking forward to updating you guys again really soon. So it is Thursday, or to be more specific, very close to Friday, but it's still technically Thursday. So we got to check in because even though I was 220 pages away from finishing Skyward, I've finished this book now. This book, it took me a hot minute to get into this book because Brandon Sanderson has very slow beginnings. Not only that, sci-fi is not my favourite genre. And so when a lot of technical things come up in a sci-fi, it doesn't motivate me to keep on reading. But boy, am I glad I pushed through, because it turns out that I didn't need to know all the technical things that I thought I would need to know. So the basic premise of this book is that it follows Spencer, who is training to become a fighter to fight the enemy, which are the Krell. The Krell are these alien life forms who are trying to destroy the humans in Spencer's world. There's a whole lot more to it than that. One quick thing I can tell you that's not a spoiler because it comes up in the first chapter is that Spencer's father has been shamed for being a coward because one day when he went off being a fighter, he supposedly ran away and, then he died. And everyone just labelled him a coward, and that kind of followed Spencer as well. So she's come into the training facility to become a fighter herself. Fighter on a ship. Okay? I'm not good with sci-fi technical terminology, but she comes into this school under that... really, she's put under a microscope because of what has happened with her father, and she's treated differently to anyone else. She's given a massively unfair ride throughout her time while she is training, but she expects this going in, and it does make her a stronger person. This book took me a hot minute to get into, but once the book started going somewhere, it just became amazing. I've read some sci-fi books that I really loved, and the majority of them tend to be on the YA side. This is also a YA, and it was just really good. Again, Brandon Sanderson. If you have not picked up a Brandon Sanderson book, I highly recommend you do, because none of them have really let me down. There's only been one book that I've given 3 stars to, which is my lowest rated Sanderson book ever, but that was less about the story itself. I think I'm going to give it 4 stars. I literally just finished it before coming here to film, so I haven't thought about it enough, but at the time of recording, I'm going to be giving it 4 stars, and you can check out what I ended up giving it over on my Goodreads, which is always, the link for my Goodreads is always in the description below. So now that I've finished this book, I can now go on to this book. And speaking of sci-fi not being my favourite genre, I'm going from one sci-fi into another. This is the Murphy Napier Patreon Book Club Buddy Read Choice of the Month. Wow, that was a lot to say. In fact, Murphy has chosen 3 books that we're buddy reading this month, one of which I could not get. The other one is a book that I actually am planning on reading, but it will probably be in December. It's the 3rd book in a series, so I'll read that then. So that left this one, The Calculating Stars. So I'll start this tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to reading this book and chatting with everyone. Murphy sets up a Discord for all of her patrons, and we can talk about that over there. This is my first Murphy Napier Book Club book, so I'm excited to not only read this book, but be able to talk to everyone over on the Discord about it. Wrapping up things on Thursday. Finished Skyward, loved it, pretty sure I'm going to give it 4 stars, and going to move on to the Murphy Napier Book Club Buddy Read Book of the Month, the Calculating Stars, starting tomorrow. Alright guys, I hope you're having a good week, and I'll see you again for the wrap-up. I do believe, yes, next time you see me I'll be wrapping up this week, so I'll see you then. So it is time for another check-in, and to finish off this week's reading vlog, starting off with the Calculating Stars. Somehow I finished this book in 2 days, which I think is a really incredible feat, considering that while this book is not a tome, it's incredibly close to being a tome, so to read just under 500 pages in 2 days is really good for me, considering this week it took me a long time to get through Skyward, and I breezed through this book. So I said in my TBR that this is a YA sci-fi, and then it popped up on the screen as an adult sci-fi. I'm so glad that it popped up on the screen as written as an adult sci-fi, because it definitely is an adult book. There is cursing that occurs in this book, and there are some graphic sexual scenes that occur in this book. They don't go as far as other books that I've read that claim to be YA. But yeah, there's enough that goes on in this book that makes it an adult book. Now, to talk more about the genre, it's a sci-fi, and for me to really enjoy a sci-fi, as wrong as this will sound to sci-fi fans, the book needs to not be 100% focused on science fiction. Because if it is, I'm going to have a tough time wrapping my brain around what's going on, and I'm going to get to a point where it just annoys me, and I'm going to DNF it. This book had me in that position for the first 2 chapters. I was reading this thinking, "Oy." And I had the same with Skyward. It's funny because I read 2 sci-fis in a row, going, I don't know if this is going to be the book for me. But then, very quickly, something happens, and this book is so much more than a sci-fi, and it made me really enjoy it. So a very, very quick premise. The blurb on the back is really not a good description of this book at all, and I feel that I can give you a quick premise in a much better way than the blurb does. So basically this book follows Elma and her husband, who have both had flight training experience. I mean, I feel like this book and Skyward, it's almost like in this book you read the perspective of the parents, and in Skyward you read the perspective of the child, even though they're 2 completely different books, written by 2 completely different authors, but they have such similarities. But anyway, one day a meteorite hits a really big area, takes out a ton of places, kills a lot of people, and so those people have to find a way to cross borders and start again. And during this time, we follow Elma and her husband going through everything they are going through. Also, this book is set back in history during a time where there was no female equality, and our protagonist, Elma, is a female who wants to be an astronaut, has wanted this for a very long time, has had a ton of flight experience, but purely because she is a woman, she is being treated differently, and they're not allowing her to go on missions and things like this. This book is really good, you guys. Oh my god. If you want a book that is full on, everything is sci-fi, don't pick up this book. But if you want to read a book that deals with fighting for women's equality, equal rights, you're gonna get that in this book. I am so happy that I'm reading this book. I normally would not have picked this up, but this was the Murphy Napier Patreon buddy read for the month. And I was chatting with everyone on the Discord and having a lot of fun, and with my final thoughts on this book, I said thank you to whoever made sure we read this book, because I never would have picked it up originally, and I loved this book. My only complaint originally was that this is a standalone. Originally, because I thought it was, but it's not. This is part of a a trilogy. I believe there may even be more books coming out in the future. So I'm going to keep my eye out for book number 2. It's already out, and I certainly am thinking about reading it, because where we left off, I want to read so much more. So really, really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. I then picked up The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. Okay, I've been looking forward to this book for a very, very long time, and I eventually put it on hold at my library because it was going to be so hard to get it by purchasing it. That is because this book is a very popular book. It was released last year, and basically BookTube has been littered with this book, and people keep talking up this book and how wonderful it is. Sadly, Mr. Francy has DNF'd this book, and I'm going to explain why, but first of all, I need to make a very big point, and that is that Erin Morgenstern has done nothing wrong. Her writing style is very easy to read, her writing style is very beautiful. I think it's great. I think a lot of people are going to love this book, but one thing that I have a problem with, for me, if I'm going to read a book, is if I need to find someone else who can explain what this book is about, because I can't do it myself, that is not the book for me. I am very much a plot-driven reader, and I got to 30 pages into this book. I want to get to 30 pages and at least be able to say, this is what's going on so far. If I were to start explaining that to you guys, it would be like, okay, so the first 3 pages was a mini story about this, and then the next 3 pages was a mini story about this. Then we had about 5 pages which was a story about a guy. Then we went and had 3 pages about a story about this, another 3 pages with a story about this, then we had 5 pages about that guy again, and then we had 3 pages. This book is extremely confusing. I came to find out that Erin Morgenstern, the way that she writes her books, is that she will write a scene, walk away, come back, write a completely different scene, and then just find a way to stitch them together. And it reads like that, and I'm just not a fan of it. I will say one pro for Erin Morgenstern is that she can be descriptive, but it's descriptive in a way that is just descriptive enough. It's enough for me to be able to visualize beautifully what she has written. I love her as an author. I just think as a book that I'm reading for the sake of trying to discuss a book with you guys, that it's not the book for me. But a lot of people love it. So you might. It's meant to be an environmental read. Apparently that's something that is a thing, and it's a thing that I don't like. So I'm DNFing this book after 30 pages. So let's check out what we're going to be reading next week. Starting off with, thanks to Murphy Napier once again, a romance book. I don't really read romance books, but Murphy, if I can take anything on board, it is how much Murphy has given me some amazing recommendations over the course of time, and she has basically, she's basically made the point that if you're going to pick up a romance book, you want to pick up a book by Casey West. So I've chosen P.S. I Like You. YA romance, I'm intrigued, we'll see how we go. I don't want to talk about it here, I'm just going to let the book stand for itself. The second book that I'm going to pick up is a series that I thought I was done with, that I had DNF'd, and then my library decided to send me a whole box full of like 14 books, and this was one of them, and it was the Angel's way of saying, Mr. Francy, you're not done with this series, even if you think you are. So, I'm going to be reading book 2 in the Percy Jackson series, Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan. So we'll see how this goes. This is a middle grade fantasy. I'm really happy to read a middle grade. I feel like I should be reading more middle grade books so I can advertise more middle grade books. But anyway, so we'll see. I'm going into this book happy to read a middle grade, but I'm also going into it a little bit anxious. We'll see how we go. If I like this, it may get me back into the Percy Jackson series though. So we'll see. I've seen negative reviews for this book, I've seen positive reviews for this book, all spoiler free of course, because I don't want to be spoiled, but we'll see where I stand. The third and final book I'm going to be reading for next week will be Nobody Real by Stephen Camden. This is another book that was placed into the library box of books that they just randomly decided to give me to loan. It's a YA contemporary. I originally thought it was a YA fantasy, but it's not. It's a YA contemporary, and I do appreciate that. So we'll see. I, again, want to go in blind with these ones. So, these are the books that I have been speaking about, that I've been reading this week. I also read Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. Started this one, finished this one, 4 stars, DNF this one. And the books that I'm going to be reading next week, these ones. P.S. I Love You by Casey West. Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan. And Nobody Perfect by Steve Camden. That's where I'm going to leave it. Calling it a day there, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Peace, blessings, and so much love. I post videos every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I'll see you again soon. Bye, guys. Happy reading. Bye.